Countdown to Halloween 2023, featuring eerie and uncanny tales of haunts, ghosts, and suspense. October is finally here. Join us all month for special Halloween presentations on Storylink Radio's YouTube channel as we count down to Halloween 2023. Keep a close eye on YouTube alerts or you'll miss one. Celebrate October with us right here and now. Tonight's presentation from Storylink Radio. Bloody Laundry. The morning sky was dark with the promise of a coming storm. Ellen couldn't stop shivering as she waited for her friends, Sybil and Nola. The three of them always walked to school together, but this morning Ellen wished she'd gotten a ride from her mom instead. It looked like they were going to get drenched. Finally, she saw the two girls approaching from farther down the street. "Come on, you guys!" she shouted as she took a few steps towards them. "I'm freezing to death." "Oh, don't be such a wimp," Sybil called back. "This is spring weather for where I come from in Chicago." "They say it's going to snow later today," Nola added in her usual serious tone as they drew closer. "Well, I don't care if it does," Ellen fell in beside her friends, "as long as I don't have to be outside in it." As if in response to Ellen's comment, a light rain began to fall. Huddling under their umbrellas, the three girls followed their usual path through the woods. During the summer, this was the best part of the day. Ellen loved walking through the cool shade under the trees, following the crooked stream that flowed there. But today, the bare branches looked like dead claws, and everything was eerily silent, except for the faint dripping of rainwater off the tree limbs. Although nobody said anything, all three girls felt the strange silence and walked a little faster than they normally did. Then they all stopped dead in their tracks when they saw a figure bending over the edge of a stream ahead of them. Who's that?" asked Sybil, pointing at the crouching figure. "I've never seen her before." Ellen peered through the misty gloom at the old woman. It looked like she was bending over something in the water. "What's she doing out here on a horrible day like this?" Ellen wondered out loud. "Yeah, weird, right? Let's go around her," muttered Nola. Ellen nodded her agreement. Something about the whole situation was odd. And she suddenly felt nervous. As the three girls began to edge off the path, Ellen, who didn't want to startle the woman, called out, "Hello?" as they came closer. The woman didn't answer. But Ellen was close enough now to see the woman's greasy black hair and the faded, shapeless dress she was wearing. Unbelievably, it looked like the woman was doing her laundry in the stream. Ellen was about to make a comment to her friends when she saw what the woman was washing, and her words caught in her throat. She was washing clothes, so stained with blood that the part of the stream where she knelt was a pool of red. There was blood streaked on the woman's arms up to her elbows, and tiny fingers of red slipped into the current, washing downstream. Ellen stopped abruptly and heard Sybil and Nola stumbling to a halt behind her. She heard one of them gasp as they got a glimpse of the horrible sight also. You think she killed somebody?" demanded Nola in a shrill voice, backing away. Although Nola had spoken loudly, the woman gave no sign she even noticed the three girls. I don't know," whispered Ellen. "Well, let's not stick around to find out," insisted Sybil. "Let's get out of here." The girls broke into a run. Stumbling over roots, dodging tree branches and prickly bushes, the three friends fled in the direction of their school. Every few feet, one of them would cast a panicked glance over her shoulder to see if the horrible laundress was chasing after them, but she seemed to have vanished in the mist. Ellen broke out of the trees first, with Nola and Sybil close behind. Then together they raced across the meadow to the safety of the school football field. Erin Smith, the teenage daughter of the PE teacher, was jogging around the dirt track that circled the field. Ellen called out as they ran toward the older girl. "What is it?" Erin asked in alarm when she saw their panicked faces. "What's the matter?" "We saw," Ellen gasped. "We saw something horrible back along the stream. It was an old woman," added Nola in a breathy voice. "And she was washing clothes covered with blood," Sybil finished. Erin's eyes widened in disbelief. "What? What exactly did you see?" Ellen had recovered her breath by this point and attempted to tell their story as calmly as she could. When she finished, she shuddered with the awful memory. "And the old woman never said a word," Nola said. "She never even looked up at us." Erin considered what she just heard. Then she looked at the three girls with confidence. "I know what you saw. You just described the bonnie." Ben-Nye? Asked Sybil, puzzled over by the strange word. Yeah, Aaron nodded. I've heard about them from my grandmother. They're supposed to be the ghosts of women who died in childbirth. They're fated to wash their bloody laundry until the day when they normally would have died. The three friends looked at one another in disbelief. But what does it mean? Ellen asked. Why would we see her there all of a sudden? We walk the same way to school every day. We never saw her there before. Aaron glanced over their heads toward the forest. Then she leaned forward and whispered slowly. Ben-Nye is only seen by those who are about to die. What? Ellen yelped, backing up a step. Sybil put her hands on her hips. Yeah, right. Aaron straightened. Hey, you're the ones who brought her up, not me. But we all saw her. What does that mean? I don't know, answered Aaron with a shrug. Maybe it only counts for the one who saw her first. In spite of her skepticism about Aaron's story, Ellen felt an icy layer forming around her heart. But who was that? Which one of us? Oh, come on, Sybil exclaimed angrily. This is crazy. It was probably some old beggar woman. She looked up at the sky, now almost black. We're about to get soaked, and first period is starting. I'm out of here. With that, she stormed off toward the school. Deciding she was probably right, Nola and Ellen said goodbye to Aaron and followed their friends to class. Oh, Aaron's just trying to scare us, Nola whispered. Yeah, Ellen whispered back, hoping that Nola was right. The rain grew stronger throughout the day, and the lightning filled the sky. By the end of the afternoon, icy hail was coming down in sheets. Rather than walk home in the downpour, Ellen called her mom at work to see if she could get her to drive her and Nola home. Sybil, who truly loved the cold weather, decided she'd rather walk. Watch out for the bloody laundry lady, Ellen joked. During the day, they had come to agree with Sybil that all they had seen was a beggar woman washing her clothes. Now they were practically convinced that what they thought was blood was only some kind of wine or food stain or something. In this weather? Sybil asked with raised eyebrows. No laundry is that important. She burst out laughing and headed for the forest. By the time Ellen sat down to dinner, the hail had turned to snow. Geez, looks like we're in for a real blizzard, her dad said as he came to the table after watching the news. Really? Ellen asked after a faint stir of excitement running through her at the thought of school being canceled. I sure hope that... But the ring of the telephone interrupted her, and she excused herself to answer it. It was Sybil's mother, asking if she'd seen Sybil. She never came home from school, the worried woman said. Please, Ellen, can you tell me where she is? But all Ellen could offer was the news that Sybil had decided to walk home after school by herself. Over the next few hours, as the winds rose and the snow began to fall more heavily, policemen searched the neighborhood for Sybil. Her body was found within a few hours, lying halfway in the stream in the woods. They say she probably slipped and fell in, Ellen explained the tense telephone conversation with Nola after the initial shock had worn off. She must have hit her head in a rock or something and froze to death before she came to. Do you really believe that? Nola asked. What do you mean? Ellen returned almost defensively. Of course I do. Don't you? It just seems so sudden. I don't know what to believe. They were both silent for a moment, thinking of their friend. Then Nola asked hesitantly, What about that woman we saw this morning? Yeah, what about her? Ellen asked Amanda harshly. She wasn't about to admit that the same thought had already crept into her head. She had been relieved that if Aaron had been telling the truth, then at least now they knew who had seen the washing woman first. Sure, it made Ellen feel disgusted with herself for thinking such a horrible thing, but she had to admit she was glad she wasn't the one who was found dead in the stream. Well, Nola continued, maybe the woman we saw really was that Ben-Nye thing that Aaron was talking about. And you're happy Sybil was the one to see it first? Ellen said, accusing her friend of her own selfish thought. No, I'm wondering if Aaron was right. Maybe the curse counts for everyone who sees the woman. Now Ellen felt really scared. Look, Nola, Sybil's mom said the police told her it was an accident. That's good enough for me. She searched for an excuse to hang up. Anyway, I gotta get off the phone now. My mom wants to use it. Okay, Nola said, unconvinced. I'll see you tomorrow. I hope. By morning, thick drifts of snow had piled up overnight, and the radio announcer reported that the school would be closed for the day. Ellen's wish had come true, but her parents weren't so lucky. Their offices were both staying open, so Ellen asked her dad to drop her off at Nola's house on his way to work. By unspoken agreement, neither of the girls mentioned the strange woman they had seen the previous day. Still, they couldn't help talking about Sybil and how much they missed her. By mid-morning, the snow began falling again, and soon after, while Ellen and Nola were watching TV, the electricity went out. With a groan, Nola picked up the phone to call her parents, who had also gone to work. That was when the girls realized the phone lines were dead, too. Well, now what are we going to do? Ellen wondered out loud, feeling of panic slowly rising within her. How about making some lunch, and then going out back and building a snow fort? Suggested Nola, who didn't seem to be bothered at all. Yeah, exclaimed Ellen, immediately forgetting her fears. Maybe we can get some of the other kids from the block to come over and we all have a snowball war. Soon they were happily hunched over peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, cracking each other up with silly stories about some of last winter's snowball fights. Ellen was in the middle of describing how she pounded one of the boys from their band class when Nola began making a strange sound. What? Ellen asked, thinking the other girl was trying to say something. I didn't understand you. What? Gagging uncontrollably, Nola pushed herself away from the table. That's when Ellen realized something was terribly wrong. Her friend's face was turning a bright red, and her hands were clutching helplessly at her throat. Nola! Ellen screamed. She tried pounding on her friend's back, but Nola's horrible choking only became worse. In desperation, Ellen grabbed her friend from behind, wrapped her arms around Nola's chest like she'd seen on TV, and squeezed. Then nothing happened. And Nola's face was now changing from red to blue, and her lips were turning a horrible shade of purple. With her veins swelling on her forehead as if she were about to pop, Nola fell to her knees. She turned an agonized face toward Ellen and fell to the floor in a deadly silence. Then her body relaxed, and the color completely drained from her face. Nola? Nola? No! Ellen screamed and ran out of the house. Ellen had no clear idea of where she was going. All she knew was that she had to get away from her friend's body. All she heard over and over again were Aaron's words. The beignet is only seen by those who are about to die. Suddenly feeling the cold air going right through her thin turtleneck, Ellen realized that she had run out of Nola's house without her jacket. Panicking, she looked around. It was hard to recognize where she was. Everything was white. The swirling snow made it impossible for her to see more than a few feet in front of her. To make matters worse, with the electricity down, there were no street lamps or house lights to form landmarks, just occasional bolts of lightning in the snow. I am not going to die, she said out loud to no one in particular. It's just a coincidence, that's all. Just a horrible coincidence. She began walking in what she thought was the right direction toward her house. But before long, she was shivering so hard her teeth were chattering. She tried to angle herself toward the sidewalk and ended up stumbling into a street sign. By squinting, she could barely make out the letters, and she happily realized that she was about 5 blocks away from home. No problem. I've done this walk hundreds of times before, but not in weather like this. Ignoring her own traitorous thoughts, Ellen struggled forward towards what she hoped was her house. Soon her world narrowed to a patch of snow directly in front of her feet. She walked like an old woman, bent over and shaking, breaking into fits of coughing and murmuring the word coincidence, 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 over and over again. When she finally reached her own street, it felt as if a huge weight had been lifted from her. She broke into a quick shuffle as she hurried toward the warmth and safety of her home. Before she knew it, her yard was in front of her. She ran up the front walk and flung herself through the door. It took a long time for her numbed brain to register the house was dark. Then she remembered the electricity was dead. First things first, she thought as another spasm of coughing clenched her chest. She stumbled down the dark hallway to the bathroom, and she reached into the medicine cabinet for the cough medicine. She knew from experience the taste was horrible, so she quickly gulped out a couple of mouthfuls. Suddenly pain shot through her with such intensity that it pitched her to the floor. Her throat began to burn. Her stomach felt like it was being torn apart. She tried to scream, but the walls of her throat had suddenly swollen shut. Her weakened body flopped on the floor like a fish out of water, and her vision dimmed. whatever she had swallowed. It wasn't cough medicine. And then, like a hideous joke, the lights flickered back on, just in time for Ellen to see that she had drunk from a bottle of her mother's hair dye. Coincidence. Yeah, right. Was her final mocking thought before the poisonous liquid took her. You've just heard tonight's story from Storylink Radio's Countdown to Halloween 2023. Remember to come back for our next tale. Many more stories of all genres available to listen to and read along with now on our website at www.storylinkradio.com. Visit our YouTube channel at youtube.com/storylinkradio. And visit our podcast for easy mobile listening anywhere, anytime. Just search for Storylink Radio on your favorite podcast provider. Oh, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button and click that alert bell for Storylink Radio.